Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. Continuing a little bit more with Inkscape. So that's what we started going over on Monday. We basically just went over vector graphics and what Inkscape is sort of and stuff like that. Hi, today we're going to be actually opening it up, messing around with it, you know, just sort of getting used to the controls and stuff like that, and maybe doing a simple but neat little thing that you can do with Inkscape. So, I guess just as a little bit of review, who here can tell me what vector graphics are? Yeah, mathematical equations. How does that differ from raster graphics? What are raster graphics? Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits of it. Accretive pixels, yeah. Okay, so I know you listed one, Andrew. Who else here can list benefits of using vector graphics over raster graphics? They can be. They can be. They can be easier on the computer. Yep. Yeah, you and Andrew had the same idea, Jean-Marc. Same there, Noah. What was that thing about animating that I was talking about? Maybe you guys can remember that one. Yeah, exactly. You can move the nodes. It is easier to animate. Exactly. You can move the nodes and reshape the picture as a result of that. So okay, how about one? And I really only gave one example. One example in which it might be better to use raster graphics instead of vector graphics. Vector graphics are easier to scale. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, no worries, Grayson. If it happens, it happens. We'll put the video up afterwards. In that picture of Hong Kong. Yeah, essentially. Um, so like if you have a big complex picture with a lot of different colors and stuff like that and a lot of details, it would probably probably be best to have some kind of raster uh, image instead of a vector image. You feel the same way? Yeah, I know. It's always interesting when you suddenly just forget how to speak. But yeah. So that would definitely be a viable reason to use raster graphics instead of vector graphics because there's less that needs to be messed around with. Yes, we will be spending some time with Inkscape today, Jacob. Um, so yeah, so that pretty much covers everything that we went over on Monday. Basically, the differences between raster and vector graphics, and why you might use one over the other. And to recap, just in case I didn't read everybody's answers, vector graphics are mathematical equations. Raster graphics are a grid of pixels. Vector graphics are easier to scale and easier for animation. In simpler pictures, they take up less space on your computer than a raster graphics file will. If they're more complex, however, you'll want to use raster graphics because vector graphics will need mathematical equations to represent all of the small shapes and details that exist on your image. So yeah, that pretty much represents everything that we went over on Monday in 1/10 of the amount of time. But that's just kind of how we roll. Anyway, so today we're going to be messing around with Inkscape. We're actually going to be taking a look at some of the stuff that Inkscape can do and some of its some of its tools and things like that. We might get started on some of the other stuff that you can do with Inkscape, like turn a raster image into a vector image. And then we'll sort of set ourselves up to spring into the Inkscape project, at least for next week. If we don't get it started today, at least we can get it, going next week or something like that. So at any rate, yeah. Show of hands, how many of you already have Inkscape installed? Okay, I see a few hands that aren't up. Fair enough, fair enough. I'll go ahead and put the hands down. I guess raise your hand if you have it downloaded, but not yet installed. A couple of hands. How about raise your hand if you need to download it in the first place? I see no hands. Okay, excellent. That is, that's good. That's good. We're off to a good start then. So basically, those of you who need to install it, go ahead and get started on that right now. That's going to take a few minutes, so I just want to make sure that you're ready to go at least by the end of the lesson today. How many people are on this webinar? Oh, we've got 11 people attending. So it's not a huge class. I see you raising your hand, Tiernan. Did you have a question? You can always throw it into the question box. Oh, you have to leave early? Okay. All right, well, thank you for letting me know. No worries. We'll get this video up on YouTube tonight, at least at some point, so it'll be viewable tomorrow. Just go ahead and check out the Young Engineers YouTube page, and it will be listed there. But thank you for letting me know. And again, no worries. You have to leave early as well, Matthew? All right, same deal. Yeah, if you guys got to leave early, yeah, you can just let me know. I appreciate you guys letting me know. Usually not a huge deal. Like I said, I'll be putting these videos up on YouTube same night. So you'll be able to view it the next day and just be caught up on everything. Anyway, yes, so what I'm going to do, well, we have various people installing Inkscape and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and open it up as well. So I'm just going to double click on the Inkscape 0.91 icon. Mine is Inkscape 0.91. I believe that's still the latest stable version, but at any rate, it'll take a little bit for it to start up. If this is your first time starting up Inkscape, be prepared. It could take up to like 5 minutes before it launches. It can take a long while, especially if you're emulating it through Xports. That is to say, if you're running it on a Mac. Yeah, it's not going to be the case for everybody. I'm just saying that's a possibility. But yeah, so just if you double click on it and it doesn't open immediately, or it doesn't look like necessarily even it's continuing to open it, don't worry, just be patient. Like I said, it could take up to 5 minutes. Basically what it's doing is it's finding all of the fonts on your computer, caching them, and converting them to a vectorized form, as I understand it, so that they can be used in vector art. So this is what our Inkscape UI looks like. Pretty straightforward. Well, I say that, and if you don't know what to look for, then maybe it looks a little bit more complex. But at any rate, I'll go through all the stuff we have here. So you've got the rectangle in the middle. We've got this gray rectangle right here. That is the canvas. So basically, changes that you make to your vector art. If you want to share it with somebody or print it out or whatever is on the canvas, will be printed or laser cut or whatever. So just keep that in mind. The canvas is, where the magic happens. You can draw outside of the canvas, but that's technically considered not part of the drawing. But it is good if you want to have like a little bit of bleed over and stuff like that. You want to have designs that can go outside of the canvas, because then they'll be cut off appropriately. So, that all comes down to personal preference. Anyway, on the left-hand side, as you can see, I messed around with it. We've got tools. This is your toolbox. This is where you can select pretty much any of the stuff that you can do drawing-wise in Inkscape. We'll spend a greater amount of time actually going over what those things are in a few minutes here. But I just want to get through everything else. We've also got, as you can see up here, there is this bar along the top. You've got the menu bar, obviously, but then just beneath that, and your layout shouldn't be too terribly different. It might be a little bit different, but if you can find it, it's got like a whole bunch of icons and an X, Y, and Z, or X, Y, and W value, as well as a height value. X, Y, W, and H. X, Y position, W for width, H for height. Anyway, that's the tool option. So as you can see, if I click on one of these different tools, we get different tool options. Well, that makes sense, right? You have different tools, you have different option requirements for them. Anyway, that's where that is, so that you can tweak and fine-tune stuff as you're using these tools that Inkscape provides for you. Along the bottom here, we got this whole sort of list of colors. Well, this is, as you might expect, the color picker. It's where you pick the color for what you're doing. It's really pretty straightforward. But yeah, so that's what that is. You can pick a color, use a tool, and then draw, and it'll be in that color. And hey, look at that, amazing. We go ahead and get rid of those. Over here, we've got other more advanced options. So if you want to align everything, on the right, this might have originally been up here at the top. Like I said, it's sometimes some of the stuff is moved around a fair amount. Like I said, what operating system are you running, Liam? When did you open it? When I 2 gigs of RAM? Okay, yeah, like I said, it can take a while for it to open. Like a long while. Also, make sure that you don't get like multiple instances of it running, because that will kill your available RAM pretty quickly. At any rate, this is what we're dealing with here. Hey, no worries, Matthew. Good luck, have fun. We'll see you on Monday. For sure. Take it easy. Like I said, I've been using this for long enough that some of this stuff has gotten moved around, unfortunately, which is not terribly helpful. But I don't believe default. There we go. Okay, so this is the default view. All right. These are some advanced options. I believe under I don't entirely remember. I use this about once every 6 months. And it's just not often enough for me to always remember everything. Well, anyway, under Object, you can look at all these options like Transform, Align, and Distribute, and Arrange. That's what the Transform and Align and Distribute and fill and stroke and stuff like that is over here. This is the expansions of these options under objects. So if I were to, click transform, you would get a dialog box that looks something like that. And then I can drag it over here to the right. How do you see the algebraic equations for the graphs? Oh, that's an excellent question. Oops, no, no, no. Oh, I got rid of it. Boo. Let's actually see if we can figure that out. No. No, a lot of this stuff is about how to use latex on Inkscape. Oh, you managed to crash the program already? Yeah, it's not 100% perfect, amazing. That's the less than 1.0. Improvements are being made incrementally and things like that. A lot of times it's sort of dependent upon the goodwill of other people in addition to the core team that works on Inkscape in order to squash out all the bugs and all that good stuff. So you will occasionally run into stuff like that, unfortunately. It happens a lot more often with open source software and things like that, although there are very reliable options. But yeah, that is a thing that can happen. But yeah, I couldn't necessarily find how to find or how to see the algebraic equations for the graphs. I don't know if that's something that's actually a possibility in Inkscape, unless extensions. Oh well. Anyway, at any rate, more advanced options over here. And then you got some additional sort of stuff which we've never actually messed around with in any of these classes, but just additional little tools and things like that, which allow you to more basically clean up the photo in some way, or the image that you're creating in some way or another, align everything, snap things to certain points, stuff like that. At any rate, let's take a look at all the tools we've got over here. So this is your basic cursor. As one might expect, it's the cursor icon. This allows you to select items in your vector art. So if you wanted to select an individual group, or if you wanted to select a whole bunch of groups, like a complete image or something like that, you can do that with the cursor tool, which you can then use to resize it and modify it and things like that. Oh, before I continue any further, very important things. Using the mouse wheel will scroll around on the image up and down. However, if you hold on Control and use the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. So that's good to know. Otherwise, use the scroll bars on the bottom and right side in order to move around the picture. What is latex? Latex is latex in this context is a mathematical what am I trying to say here? So basically, latex is a way to create nice looking mathematical equations in text. In addition to that, I believe latex has the ability to graph equations that you write out. So you can write out like x squared plus, 2x, blah, 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 blah. Well, latex is an entirely separate program. LaTeX is for people who want to make, who want to write a paper on mathematics, and then they can use LaTeX in order to neatly write equations in that paper that look like, something they'd write down on a piece of paper. Because if you try to write something in Word, or whatever, it's going to look like x divided by 2, or, x times 5, and it's not going to look like how you necessarily write it on paper. A lot of times when you're doing like calculus and stuff like that, you're going to have like x squared plus 5x plus 9/5 a square root of that all over 3c, and then that's all going to be to the 4/7 power, and so on and so forth. Like, this looks much neater than how you would type it out on a regular word processing program. LaTeX allows you to type out equations on the computer that would end up looking like this. And like I said, in addition, I believe it does have the ability to graph equations or do limited math like MATLAB. Well, I say limited math like MATLAB. MATLAB can do like everything, but I couldn't tell you for certain. I've never actually used LaTeX before. At any rate, yes, so remember to hold down Control and use the mouse wheel in order to zoom in and out. That is going to be very useful for a lot of stuff that you're going to do. Let me go nuts with this. You're more than welcome to stay and watch. We haven't actually gotten started on anything yet. I've just sort of done a walkthrough of all the different features of Inkscape, but a lot of the stuff, you'll be able to figure out yourself as we go along. I'll be pointing out things as we go along. So if you feel comfortable with it, you're more than welcome to stay here. Otherwise, you can bounce on out and then watch the video on YouTube later. For sure. But yes, okay, so cursor, good for selecting things. Selection cursor. This one is good for editing individual nodes in anything that you've actually drawn. And I will mess around with both the cursor and the node editor after we draw something a little bit in order for you guys to get like a better idea of what exactly is going on. Obviously, the magnifying glass is for zooming. This is for tweaking individual objects. Although it's not something I've ever actually run into. So unless you get further along with Inkscape, like you get more interested in it and deal more with it, then I can't imagine something you're ever gonna really have to worry about yourself either. Magnifying glass, zoom in or out. Ruler allows you to measure individual segments, how long they are and stuff like that. The square tool here, well, this just allows you to draw rectangles and squares. And you'll notice that mine look kind of wonky, like they've got those rounded edges, so they kind of look like pills or something like that. Well, what I can do is I can come up here to my cursor tool, or no, let's go back down to this. We'll keep it on the rectangle tool, excuse me. You notice how I've got 4 sort of symbols here. I've got squares on either corner, I've got a circle in the 3rd corner, and then I got a 4th circle, or a 2nd circle about midway down on the right-hand side. Well, if I drag this circle up to the circle in the corner, it's going to sharpen off the edges until I have like a full-on rectangle. Dragging either one of these squares is going to allow me to resize the rectangle. So I can make it something that looks like a square, and then I can round off the edges, and I have kind of like a circle-ish sort of a thing. Anyway, that's enough messing around with that. Drawing new ones is as simple as clicking and dragging. Now, as you'll notice, I can draw one, and then I can select a color, and not only has the one I've just drawn changed to that color, all the other ones in the future I draw. Now, alternatively, I can select it with the cursor, and then I can click on a color in order to change the color of that square. Now, as you can see, I've clicked on something I've drawn with the cursor. I can use the cursor to move stuff around. You'll notice I've got these arrows all around the edge of it. The arrows allow me to resize individual parts of it, or if I use the corner, I can resize two sides at the same time, and since it's a rectangle, all four sides. Now watch what happens when I click, just left click once on the rectangle again. The arrows change. The arrows now run parallel to the edges of the rectangle. And if I click and drag on these, I can now rotate the rectangle. Pretty amazing. If I hit the sides, I can give it sort of like a canted kind of thing. So even if I rotate it so that it's more or less perfectly aligned again, it's just gonna be blah. There we go. I think I got it back to how it was. So now I can rotate it, and all I did was select the cursor. Say that again, Jacob. Mine won't rotate. Okay. So if your arrows look like this, where they're perpendicular to the edge, you got to click, just like left click on the thing again, and the arrows will change. Whoa! Yeah! And then you can mess around with it to your heart's content. And also notice, this takes up a pretty significant amount of CPU power if just rotating a primitive like this, that's what they're called, primitives, has visual lag, like appreciable, noticeable lag. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's the square/rectangle tool. As you can see, I've already had quite a bit of fun with it, and it almost sounded like my voice kind of cracked. Anyway, this next one down is kind of like a rectangle sort of viewed at an angle. It kind of looks like the corner of a room maybe, or something like that. Well, this is the Create 3D Boxes tool. And as the name suggests, you can create 3D looking boxes, which you can then mess around with. Now you might notice, you might not, but if you've dealt with art, many of you have heard of the vanishing point, show of hands. Okay, so a few of you have, a few of you have not. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the vanishing point is an artistic concept where there's basically a point on the painting where all of sort of the lines run towards in order to give a sense of perspective. So that's something that artists use in order to give depth and perspective to their photo. So it looks like you're actually looking down a street as opposed to like a flat representation of it. You know, like when you're really young and you draw like a house and you basically just put like a box with like a triangle on top, and there's no dimensionality to that box. There's no side to the house or anything like that. But you know, what you can do is, if you want to introduce some dimensionality, you can do like a 3/4 view, kind of like what these boxes have here. So like you can have the front of the house and some of the side. But in order for it to make sense, like the sides of the house are going to be running off to a vanishing point. Basically, the lines are sort of going to be pointing towards a singular dot somewhere in the picture. And if you were to imagine these lines continuing beyond where they terminate, they would eventually point to that, not only to that dot, but they would also all run into each other at that dot. The singularity, yes, basically. So as you can see, all of these boxes have a vanishing point. And those of you may have noticed after looking at this that all of these boxes have the same vanishing point. Now it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to go ahead and select, there we go, and delete some of this stuff in order to make it look a little less busy. But the vanishing point is somewhere around right here. And if I were to select one of these boxes with the box tool selected, I was off by a little bit. It's actually a little bit lower than that. I'll go ahead and circle it for you. Whoop. This is the vanishing point for all of those boxes. You'll be able to tell that because you see these yellow lines on this box. They all denote the vanishing point for this particular side. Now there's also a vanishing point for the other side, and it's over here. And all of these other boxes are actually going to follow that vanishing point as well. So there are two of them. So we can actually have two sets of vanishing points, so we can orient these however we would like. And in fact, the further I get over to the side over here, you'll notice that the more dramatic the vanishing point becomes. If I keep it more towards the middle, we got these nice long boxes, which is like a little bit of drawing. But if I put it like way over here to the side, like watch what happens. Wah! Now it's like super way long and it's all pointing that way. If I put it over to this side, it's going to flip out and make that monstrosity. Anyway, one of the nice things is you can adjust the vanishing point. So let's go ahead and we'll just move this. And as you can see, it's actually updating that vanishing point for all of the 3D boxes that exist on this picture. I drew it myself in order to point out where the vanishing point was. I'll go ahead and erase it. Boop. Likewise with this one, I can click and drag this one and everything kind of rotates around in order to make sense of this vanishing point. Which is kind of neato. Kind of neato cool. One last one, this one way up here, which is actually not really usable. We won't worry about that then. Let me go ahead and click on this one. So on top of that, I can also manipulate individual sides on these boxes, including depth. Like let's use this one as an example because it'll be easier to see. I can drag it out further until it goes all the way to the vanishing point and disappears beyond it and comes out the other side. I can make the box deeper. I can make it shallower. I can adjust this in order to adjust the lag. Yeah, it's real. In order to adjust the other dimension of the box, other 2 dimensions of the box. And Inkscape crashed. Yeah, it's not unusual for it to happen. I'm sorry, it is. How to change vanishing point again? So find where either the yellow or the red lines are pointing. It should point to a square. You might have to zoom out or pan in order to find it, and then just click and drag that little white square, and it will adjust the vanishing point for all of the 3D boxes on the picture. Yeah, so there's that. That's a 3D box one. That one's kind of fun. Next, we've got circled. Circle will create circles or ellipses or ovals or, you know, whatever your shape is that you're drawing. As you can see, you've got, you've got a few different ones to work with here. Yeah, your no-cornered shape. You've got the 2 squares, again, that you can use to adjust the dimensions of it. And then the circle over here will allow you to make like a Pac-Man kind of a dealio. So if you adjust these, you can adjust the how much of it is rendered. Now sometimes, yeah, there we go. It used to be doing a Pac-Man thing, and then it decided that it was too good for that and didn't want to do it. At any rate, that means that you can get stuff like this, which, let's be real here, isn't incredibly useful on its own. Although you can find uses for it. You guys are smart. But anyway, that's a circle. Next, we've got the five-sided shape / five-pointed star. It's the Pentagon / Star drawing tool. As you can see, I can just click and drag and really easily create a nice looking five-pointed star. On top of that, I can drag this, it shall be known as Untitled 1, yes, and add some quarters. I will. I can drag this around in order to rotate the star. In addition, I can either move this one more towards the center of the star, or I can drag this one in or out in order to adjust how basically dramatic the points are. I can get rid of the points entirely and just have a pentagon. That's why it's the Pentagon / five-pointed star shape makery thing. In addition to that, not only can I go in and out forward and away from the center, I can move it off center and create like a buzzsaw. For neat stuff, whatever that might be. I haven't yet determined what that neat stuff is, but it would be neat. It would be real neat, let me tell you. Look at that company logo. So neat. The neatest. Anyway, you can do that kind of stuff with it. It's a good way to easily create shapes that are a little bit harder to freehand, like stars and pentagons. Next, we've got this tool that looks like a spiral. How weird. Also, strangely enough, the tool that looks like a spiral makes spirals. Bet you weren't expecting that twist. But this is what the spiral tool does, is it creates spirals. Adjusting the square at either end will extend the spiral out or retract it from its original position. So as you can see, I'm basically deleting a lot of the center of the spiral so that like the center is bigger. However, I can put it back if I want to. Woo! Making it smaller. Does kind of look like a disc, yeah. I can do the same thing with the outside square. So I can drag it all the way out, extend it, extend it, extend it, extend it, and that is our spiral. And then we can create some sort of like weirdo Mickey Mouse illustration. Bam. Done. We've done it. It's done. We did it. Your spirals don't look like that. Maybe mess around with the one of the two squares to see if you can draw more of the spiral or something like that. If you draw more of the spiral outwards so that like you actually have more and more loops and then compress it, basically take one of these, go to the cursor mode and take one of these diagonal arrows and then just make it small. Suddenly, you have a big complicated looking spiral, but it's really small. Whoa, that is messing with my head. Okay, so that is the benefit of our spiral tool. Ridiculously exciting, I know. All right, so after the spiral tool, we've got our pencil-y drawing tool, which allows you to draw as if you had a pencil. Now, notice that the shape is not finalized until you no longer have a green line. If you start drawing fast, you might notice that some of that green line is red, and it's basically telling you that, hey, Inkscape is trying to figure out how to represent that with an equation, with some sort of parametric equation or vector or something like that. So that's really all that means. Once you let go of it and the line turns, whatever color you have selected, though, that means that you know you've finalized your drawing. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind with Inkscape. Let me zoom way in and draw a line here. Okay, that's a little bit too zoomed in. Still a little bit too zoomed in. So as you can see, there we go. The line is perfectly crisp along the edges. So it doesn't lose fidelity like a raster image would. However, watch what happens when I zoom way, 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 way out and then just draw a line. So that's my line right there, right? You're probably already noticing a problem. First of all, really hard to see. Second of all, as I zoom in more, what? 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 What is that? Especially look at this right here, like, woo, woo, woo. Let me draw another line. And it looks, you know, more or less straight. Let me zoom in though. There's all kinds of weird jiggly bumps and sort of spastic movements of it, and that's because it's taking in, you know, the input from my mouse, and every single little jitter or stutter or anything like that is being recorded by Inkscape and being turned into this mess. So the more you zoom in, the more you blow it up, the easier you're going to see those things. So you don't get this, in fact, you don't get the loss of fidelity that you get with a raster image. You kind of get the exact opposite problem, in which there is too much detail. So zooming in gives all of the weird jitters and stutters that occur from basically the way I move my mouse, the way the mouse reads the mouse pad, the way the computer interprets the coordinates from the mouse, you know, the way that Inkscape ties the points together that are coordinates conveyed from the computer to Inkscape. Between all of those things, you're going to get wiggly madness like this. Wiggly madness. Actually had a decent example of this the other day. Let me just go ahead and... There. So now we've drawn that. And like, look at that right there. Look at wiggle, 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 wiggle. Like, so it's very clearly it's an imperfect science. In that case, timely segue, you might want to use the pen tool, the Bezier curves tool. So what I can do is I can click once and click again, and look at that, I made a straight line. I can click again and make another straight line based off of that first one. If I go back to my original point, it closes out the shape, assumes that I am in fact done. However, watch what happens when I click and drag after the fact. Look at that. I'm creating a crazy curve. And this crazy curve can in fact be used in the drawing, and if we zoom in, we can see that very clearly everything was done perfectly straight. There's no, you don't have to worry about it picking up every single jitter that comes through on it. So it's not a raw input like it is, like the pencil tool is. However, it's very good for creating nice, neat lines. So that's the pen tool, or the Bezier curve. And then we have a different kind, like a fountain pen, as opposed to like a felt pen. And the fountain pen allows you to do calligraphy. How to zoom in again? Hold down Control and use the mouse wheel. So if I were to use the calligraphy tool, I can be like, hello, hello, turn it into a question mark on accident. But zooming in, again, perfectly straight lines. Perfectly straight lines. So that's our pen tool. Thank you. The A allows you to write text, which you're not able to see right now, but let me make it larger. Hey, look at that, write text. You can even, change the font. So it's like that Unicode monospace text. You can change the alignment, the kerning, and all that different stuff. Make it bold, italic for amazing clarity and fidelity. You've got the basically the spray sculpting tool, which would normally allow you to sculpt sculpt objects a little bit more obliquely. The eraser tool allows you to erase. See, this one's interesting. As you see, what it did is it actually created a dip in my shape, in the shape of the eraser that I drew. So let's do this again. Let's go like that. And we should see a dip down into the triangle. And we do. In fact, here might be a better way to represent it, like that. So interestingly, every shape, yeah, police in the background, every shape can be erased away like this. It's not like we're erasing the line, it's that we're erasing the shape, the entire shape that this line outlines. You can probably see it more easily if I do some erasing here. So as you can see, we're revealing the white background behind it if it really didn't like that erase. If I were to work right here and give it some time to still figure out its life as it's erasing, we would see that how to undo. This is good for everybody. Control Z will undo. That's a very useful shortcut to know. On Mac, generally, it's going to be Command Z, although I believe that since it's X11 quartz, it keeps the, for lack of a better term, the transliteration of the, it keeps the literal keyboard shortcuts from the Windows side, so you would still be using Control Z. The eraser isn't working. Anyway, the paint bucket allows you to paint in an area with a solid color. There's the gradient tool, which allows you to create gradients. I apologize, part of the reason why I'm not using these right now is because they're not going to cooperate very well. See, the paint bucket, it's an imperfect science because it's not filling in individual pixels. It's drawing a curve which fills it to the best of its ability. Eyedropper tool allows you to select a color that you that's under your cursor, so I can just select like boom, and I've got that red now. I can select this and get that orange. I can select this and get that blue. I can select this right here, and I got a nice like lavender color or whatever. Anyway, and then the diagram connections makes it really easy for you to be able to create diagrams. At any rate, it is 7:51. I spent a much longer time talking about these different tools than I anticipated. So we'll actually get started on converting a bitmap to a vector image on Monday. We'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you can do with Inkscape, insofar as like physical projects you can do with them and stuff like that, and then we'll get started on our own project. Interesting. I haven't had to do that in the past, but that's good to know. Yeah, that's very strange. Normally that's never been an issue for me, but maybe I've just been selecting it and I just didn't realize. So thank you for that. It's a very handy heads up. Handy. At any rate, yes. Poll questions. We'll we'll go ahead and do those. Then if you have any questions for me, I'll be here at least until about 8 o'clock, and then otherwise we will break for the weekend, and I will see you on Monday. As long as it doesn't go through two different colors, it'll erase. There's that too. Yeah.